Hello, my friends. We're here today to learn about the very beginning of each of our programs. As you guys know, every program we do begins with the words public class. And we're going to talk about what a class is. There are two uses I can think of. The first one is just to have a program you can run. But the other one is what we're going to be doing today and working with for most of the rest of the year. And that is you can use a class as a blueprint for a type of object. You can use a class to define what the type of a new variable might look like. This turns out to be extremely powerful, creating these objects. That's what object-based programming or object-oriented programming is called. So when you create your own variable type, let's think about like what that kind of has. No matter what kind of variable type you have, it's going to have two things. It's going to have properties and it's going to have things it can do. So when you look at like a hand, for example, your hand has properties, right? You have a number of fingers. You have a boolean, whether it's open or closed. You have like a width between your thumb to your pinky. And you have things you can do with it. So you can punch someone with it. You can high-five someone with it. All sorts of things. If you have, for instance, a ball has properties as well, right? It has a radius. It has a weight. It has a bounciness. Oops. But it also has things you can do, right? You can throw it. You can smush it. You could probably cut it in half if you're sadistic. So everything, every kind of object or kind of process you can have has these properties, and then it has things you can do with it, basically. Think about like a video game character, right? A video game character is going to have properties. It's going to have its name, its hit points, its strength, how high it can jump, and so forth. But it also has things you can do, right? It can attack, it can jump, it can move backwards. So every kind of object you can think of is going to be broken down into these properties and then things it can do. And that's what we're going to be thinking about when we create our own object. So let's start with something, for example, we all make t-shirts, or we all wear t-shirts at some point. So we're going to make a public class t-shirt. Okay, so what this is, again, let's go ahead and delete everything. We'll talk about that in class soon. This is the blueprint for the t-shirt class. And you will create objects of type t-shirt using this class. One thing also, class names are always capitalized, and we've seen some objects so far, just like string or integer or math, they're always just capitalized. Method names are lowercase, of course, and variable names are usually lowercase. Okay, so let's talk about what are some of the properties that a t-shirt might have. So properties of a t-shirt. And the properties of a t-shirt are what are called instance variables. And here's the deal with instance variables. Instance variables, they are defined outside of all methods. And what that means is they are accessible throughout the entire class. So every method I'm going to create within this class is going to be able to access these instance variables. Okay. And one word also, we're going to talk more about what this means. We put the word private in front of these variables. Now, we're not going to give them initial value. We'll do that in a minute. But we're going to create a private string for maybe the size of our t-shirt, a private string for the color of our t-shirt, and then let's make a private boolean for whether that shirt is dirty or not. And initially, I just declare all these. I am not giving them any values yet. And one thing I want to point out is we're going to create several different t-shirt objects. Perhaps you have many t-shirts in your drawer and they all have their same size or their own size and their own color. And the same thing is true here. Every t-shirt you make is going to have different values for these variables. Okay, so this is just me defining these are the properties. The next thing we're going to do is a special method called a constructor. Now, every class has a special method called a constructor. And when you create a new object of that class using the new keyword, which you've seen before, you call the constructor. Now, the constructor is different from other methods. It is just the header is just public and then the class name. Should do public class name, and then of course you have your inputs. So for the t-shirt class, it's just public t-shirt. Now this is a special method, and we're going to talk about what this does. The point of the constructor method, And again, the constructor method, you don't call a constructor, you just have the same name as a class. So if it's public class t-shirts, it's public t-shirt. If it was public class donkey, it'd be public donkey. The point of this method is to give initial values for the instance variables. And I do not need to redeclare. They're already declared. So when I want to change the size and the color, I can just do size equals. Okay, now let's go ahead and say we're going to have some inputs here. So we will input a string for size and one for color. So we're going to input some string to represent, let's call it something different. Let's call it like input size so we're not confused. And then some string for the input color. Okay. And when I set up these instance variables, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the instance variable equal to the input. So I'm going to set size equal to that input size, and we'll see what that looks like in a minute. We're going to set color to equal the input color. So again, I'm just initializing the properties of what this shirt looks like. And we're going to say every shirt starts out clean. So we're going to set is dirty to equal false. Okay. So let's talk about how we can actually create these objects. So when we want to create these objects, we're not going to create them in here. We're going to create them in another class. You'll see this compiles, right, and just make up a bunch of weird code. So I'm going to make another class called a driver. So I'm going to make this shirt driver. And this is going to be a more traditional class, like we've been doing, just a program you can run. This is not a type of variable. This is what we will use to test out our shirt objects and then call methods on them. All right. So let's go ahead and delete all this garbage and just write a public static void main. Okay. And let's go ahead and talk about what we're doing here. Okay. So I want to create a t-shirt object. Well, let's go ahead and look at a blueprint for how do we create an object. So one tip I'll give you, string is an object. So when you create a string, how do you do it? You do string, let's call movie, equals new string. We'll name it after the great comedy that's going to come out this week, Borat 2. Okay, now when you want to create a new t-shirt object, you're going to follow the same syntax. So you're going to create a t-shirt, let's do my favorite, and this will be a new t-shirt. Okay, so now you might be wondering what goes in parentheses. Well, what goes in parentheses needs to match the inputs for the constructor. So when you do new t-shirt and put whatever in parentheses, that calls the constructor method in t-shirt. So let's go ahead and move that to a different window here. Maybe. Okay, there we go. All right. So here's my t-shirt class. So when I'm calling this t-shirt constructor, I need to send it a string for the input size, and I need to send it a string for the color. Well, let's see. So let's see, my favorite t-shirt will be a large, and then let's say I do like wearing black. I just don't during the summer much. So that'll be my favorite. So that's how I create an object. So what that's doing is that's creating a t-shirt in memory. It's going to that t-shirt, it's setting it up, and it's sending it large and black. So it's setting the size to be large. It's setting the color to be whatever I type in. So I put in black here, so it sets the color to be black. And then it sets that dirty to be false. And I can create multiple t-shirts, right? So I can create a t-shirt for my son. Let's say he would wear a t-shirt that was maybe extra small. And then let's see, he's wearing a white shirt right now. Okay. So that's how you would create a variable of that type, calling the constructor. Okay, so that's the basics of setting up an object and then kind of creating it in a driver. And remember, that's what the driver is. It's just some other random thing. I could call whatever I want. There's nothing special about shirt driver. This is just a method to show how you can create and test your objects. Okay, I'll be back in a sec with part 2. Thanks for watching, and make sure you bring me questions to class.